Hi, I'm Minnie. Nice to meet you. Before I tell you my story, kindly tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I like to know where you are from. Now let's dive in. You ever have a gut feeling that you just can't shake? That little itch in your brain that says, something's wrong here, even when everything looks perfectly normal. That was me on our 10th wedding anniversary. Clinton walked into the house holding a bouquet of red roses. My favorite. He smiled like everything was fine, like he hadn't been distant for the last 6 months, like he wasn't always working late or glued to his phone. He kissed my cheek and handed me the flowers, and I felt nothing. I should have felt loved, cherished, happy. Instead, my stomach turned. We had dinner reservations at that little French place downtown, the one we used to go to back when we were dating. He dressed up. I dressed up. I wore that red silk dress he once said made me look like sin wrapped in satin. But when he looked at me this time, it was blank. No fire. No warmth. Just habit. The waiter poured us wine. Clinton toasted to us. And I smiled. I smiled because that's what a good wife does. But inside, I was already pulling at the loose threads of everything. When we got home, he went straight to the shower. Said he was exhausted. I nodded. Watched him disappear down the hallway. Then I saw it, his phone, buzzing face down on the nightstand. Now, listen, I'm not the kind of woman who goes through her husband's phone. I never used to be. But that night, I wasn't thinking straight. That itch in my brain? It was screaming. So I picked it up, typed in his passcode, our anniversary date, how ironic, and opened his messages. There she was. Alexis. Dozens of texts. Late night, I miss yous. Midday, can't wait to see yous. A selfie of her in my robe. My robe. I couldn't breathe. It felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. My ears rang. My hands shook. I scrolled and scrolled, hoping, praying. I was reading it wrong. That it was some kind of sick joke. But it wasn't. It was real. Raw. Intimate in a way we hadn't been in years. The shower stopped. I dropped the phone like it burned me and backed out of the room. Sat on the living room couch in the dark, just numb. He came out a few minutes later in sweatpants, drying his hair. He looked at me and froze. What's wrong? I didn't say anything at first. Just looked at him. Really looked at him. This man I gave a decade to. The father of my children. My partner. My supposed best friend. Who's Alexis? I asked, voice steady. He blinked. The color drained from his face. What? I didn't repeat myself. He sat down across from me, palms up like he was surrendering. Minnie, it's not what you think. That phrase. That stupid phrase. As if I was imagining the texts. As if her face in my robe was a dream. How long? I asked. He didn't answer right away. That was answer enough. 8 months, he finally said. But it's over. I ended it. I swear. 8 months. Almost a year. While I was juggling 2 kids, a full-time job, and holding our life together with duct tape and prayer, he was out playing house with someone else. I laughed. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was insane. My life, our life, was a lie, and I was the only one who didn't know. He reached for me. I pulled away. Don't, I whispered. Don't touch me, he begged. Said it was a mistake. Said he still loved me. That it didn't mean anything. Then why does it feel like everything? He didn't have an answer for that. I slept in the guest room that night. Stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. I didn't cry. Not yet. There's something beyond crying. A kind of quiet devastation. That's where I was. And as the light filtered through the blinds, I made a decision. My marriage didn't die that night. It had been dying for a long time. That night, I just finally saw the body. People talk about heartbreak like it's loud, like screaming and sobbing and throwing plates. But mine was quiet. I woke up in the guest room the morning after finding out about Alexis, and for a second, I forgot. The sun was warm on my face. The birds were chirping outside. The kids were still asleep. Everything felt normal. And then it hit me. I remembered the texts. The rope. His face when I said her name. The way he couldn't lie fast enough. And suddenly the world felt foreign. Like I was floating above my life, watching a woman who looked like me lie in a strange bed, in a house filled with things she bought with a man who wasn't hers anymore. I got up slowly. My body felt heavy, like betrayal had weight. Clinton was in the kitchen when I walked in. Shirt wrinkled, eyes tired. He looked like he hadn't slept either. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but I held up a hand. Don't. I wasn't ready for his version of events. Not when mine was still unraveling. The kids woke up and came bounding down the stairs, chattering about pancakes and soccer practice and asking if we were still going to the movies later. I smiled and nodded, and my heart cracked a little more. Because they didn't know. They didn't see the shift in the air. The fracture in the floor beneath our feet. I went through the motions that day, made breakfast, did laundry, paid a few bills. Clinton gave me space, probably hoping I'd cool down. Probably thinking this was just a fight, and that I'd snap out of it, forgive him, move on like nothing happened. But I couldn't stop looking at him and seeing her. Seeing them. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, he knocked on the guest room door. I didn't answer, but he came in anyway. I messed up, he said quietly. I sat on the edge of the bed, back straight, heart hammering. I ended it with her, he continued. Before you found out. I swear, Minnie. It was stupid. It was selfish. I know I hurt you. He looked like he meant it. But so what? I stared at him. Why? He blinked. Why what? Why her? Why cheat? Why now? He rubbed his face. I don't know. I felt invisible. Like we were just roommates. You were always busy. I was always stressed. She paid attention to me. That word, invisible, hit like a punch to the gut. You think I didn't feel the same? I asked. You think I haven't been tired or lonely or ignored? I didn't cheat, Clinton. I didn't blow up our life because I needed someone to tell me I looked good. He had no answer. I gave you everything I had, I whispered. Everything. And in return, I got secrets. Lies. Another woman wearing my robe in my house. He tried to reach for my hand again. I flinched. I don't know how to do this, I said. Do what? Stay. Pretend. Heal. Mourn a marriage that's not even dead yet. Because that's what it felt like. Like I was grieving a loss no one else could see. There was no funeral. No sympathy cards. Just me, carrying around the corpse of a life I thought I knew. He finally stood and backed toward the door. I'll give you space, he said. But please, don't give up on us yet. When the door clicked shut, I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. He wanted me to save us. But he was the one who lit the match. And now, I was standing in the ashes, wondering if I had the strength, or the desire, to rebuild. That night, I cried for the first time. Not because I wanted him back, but because I realized I had lost something I could never get back. Trust. Safety. Us. And deep down I knew, even if we stayed together, it would never be the same. It's strange how life doesn't slow down when your heart breaks. There should be some kind of pause, right? Like a warning sign flashing across the sky. This woman's life just imploded. Please stand by. But instead it was Saturday. And we had a family barbecue. I'd forgotten all about it. Clinton's mom organized it weeks ago. One of those bring everyone together things she likes to do when she senses distance. And of course, she had no idea how much distance there really was now. Clinton and I barely spoke that morning. He cooked bacon in the kitchen while I got the kids dressed. We moved around each other like ghosts. Like strangers performing a duet we'd rehearsed 1,000 times. But our hands didn't touch. Our eyes didn't meet. I should have stayed home. Told them I was sick. But I couldn't bring myself to admit the truth out loud. Not yet. I wasn't ready to deal with the pity, the gossip, the oh honey head tilts. I could barely handle my own thoughts. So instead, I put on jeans, tied my hair back, and wore the smile I'd been practicing in the mirror all week. We arrived a little after noon. Clinton's family was already in the backyard. His mom at the grill, his brother throwing a football, his sister pouring drinks. Everyone looked so relaxed. So normal. And there we were, me, the woman quietly falling apart, and Clinton, the man who broke me, walking in like we still belonged to each other. Hey, you too, his mom called out. Happy 10 years. We were just talking about how you made it a whole decade." She pulled me into a hug, warm and clueless. Clinton laughed, a little too loud, and said something about how time flies. I smiled, nodded, pretended I didn't want to throw up. I kept it together for the first hour. I talked to his aunt about her new cat, helped our youngest son fix his hot dog bun, laughed when our daughter tried to prank her uncle with a ketchup bottle. I even posed for a picture with Clinton when his mom demanded one. I saw it later that night, the photo. We looked good. Happy. Coordinated. My arm was around his waist, and his smile reached his eyes. Mine didn't. But in the moment, no one noticed. They never do. People see what they want to see. And when you've been married 10 years, they want to see success. Stability. They don't want the messy truth. Halfway through the afternoon, my sister Tasha pulled me aside. "You okay?" she asked, real low, like she knew something. I froze for half a second too long. Then I nodded. "Yeah. Just tired." She didn't buy it. I could tell. She gave me that look, eyebrows raised, eyes sharp. The same look she gave me in high school when I lied about sneaking out. "You sure?" "Yeah," I said again. "Really?" She nodded, but her hand lingered on my arm longer than usual before she walked away. That touch stayed with me the rest of the day. Later, when the sun started dipping and people began packing up, Clinton came up behind me and placed his hand on my lower back. It used to be comforting. It used to mean I'm here. Now it felt like a brand. A reminder. "You did great today," he said quietly. Like I was performing. Like we were in on the same lie. I turned to him and gave the smallest smile I could muster. "Don't get used to it," I said. His face dropped a little. He opened his mouth to respond, but I walked away before he could speak. On the ride home, the kids fell asleep in the back seat. Clinton drove. I stared out the window. We looked like a family. We even acted like one. But it wasn't real. Not anymore. And that's the thing that hurts the most. Sometimes, the lie isn't just what they did behind your back. It's what they make you live in front of everyone else. And I wasn't sure how much longer I could live inside that lie. There's a moment, right before everything changes, where the silence gets loud. It was the Monday after the barbecue. The kids were at school. Clinton was at work. And I was sitting at the edge of our bed, staring at the dresser drawer that held my old journals, my wedding jewelry, and a manila envelope I hadn't touched in years labeled, "Just in case." I never thought I'd need it. I'd written those words half-jokingly, back when we first got married and I was over-organizing our life. I even laughed as I tucked away copies of my birth certificate, my passport, the deed to my car, and a few emergency savings checks. Now, the envelope felt like a lifeline, or a warning I'd ignored. I didn't cry when I packed. That surprised me. I thought there'd be some kind of breakdown, me curled up on the floor with old photos, mascara running. But instead, I moved with a quiet calm. T-shirt, jeans, toothbrush, just enough to get by. I left my wedding ring on the nightstand. Not for drama, just because it didn't belong on my hand anymore. I texted my best friend Kayla, "Can I stay with you for a few days?" Her response came back in seconds, of course. I've been waiting for this. Waiting. Not guessing. Not wondering. Waiting. I took the keys to my car, zipped up my bag, and walked through the house one last time. The couch where Clinton and I used to binge-watch bad TV. The kitchen where we danced with the kids on pancake Sundays. The hallway where he kissed me before job interviews. Memories lived here. Good ones. But so did the lies. So did Alexis. So did all the nights he came home late, smelling like guilt and someone else's perfume. I opened the front door. Stepped outside. The air felt different. Not freer yet, but lighter. I didn't leave a note. I didn't owe him a dramatic goodbye. He knew this was coming. He'd just been pretending not to see it. Kayla greeted me with wine, a hug, and zero questions. She gave me space. Gave me her guest room. Gave me something I hadn't felt in weeks. Safety. That first night in her house, I sat on the edge of a twin bed that smelled like lavender and peace, and I finally let go. I cried. Not loud, messy sobs, but slow, aching tears that soaked into the pillow and didn't stop for an hour. Not because I miss Clinton, But because I missed me, the version of me who trusted, who felt secure, who believed that love, once promised, would be protected. And I mourned her. Clinton called. Of course he did. 7 missed calls in 2 hours. A string of texts. Where are you? Please talk to me. We can fix this. Don't do this. I didn't respond. Not yet. The next morning, he showed up at Kayla's. I was brushing my teeth when she knocked on the bathroom door and said, "He's here." My stomach flipped. I stepped outside. He was standing there, eyes bloodshot, still wearing the button-down from yesterday. His tie was crooked. He looked wrecked. "Please don't do this," he said. "Let's talk." I crossed my arms, grounding myself. "I'm not doing anything to you, Clinton," I said. "I'm doing something for me." He blinked. "So that's it? 10 years and you just walk out?" "No," I said. 10 years, and you walked out. The night you made a choice you can't undo. He opened his mouth to argue, but then stopped, and for the first time in weeks, he looked small. Not in stature, but in truth. He wasn't the man I built a life with. Not anymore. "I need time," I said. "Space. You owe me that." He nodded slowly. Eyes glossy. I closed the door. Back in the guest room, I looked at myself in the mirror. Hair messy. Eyes tired. But there was something else. A spark. Something deep in me had shifted. I wasn't just surviving now. I was reclaiming. You know what no one tells you about walking away? Sometimes, it's not the leaving that's hard. It's what follows. The silence. The second-guessing. The what-ifs that sneak in just when you start to breathe again. After I turned Clinton away at Kayla's door, I expected him to back off. Maybe finally understand I needed space. But instead, he doubled down. Like losing me finally woke him up. He sent flowers. Again. 12 long-stemmed roses and a card that said, "Still us. Still hope." He knew exactly what strings to pull. A week later, he showed up outside my office building with my favorite coffee and that crooked smile that used to melt me. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept, like maybe this was finally costing him something. "I've started seeing a therapist," he said, almost proudly, like that erased 8 months of lies. I thanked him for the coffee and walked away. But that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not the coffee, but the sadness in his eyes. The desperation. And that tiny traitorous voice in the back of my mind that whispered, maybe he's changing. Maybe this is real. The next evening, he sent a video. I almost deleted it, but curiosity got the better of me. So I sat there, wrapped in a blanket in Kayla's guest room, and watched him speak. His voice cracked. He talked about the moment I found out. About how cold I'd gone. About the pain on my face. How he'd never forget it. "I was selfish," he said. "I wanted to feel wanted again. And instead of talking to you, I ran to someone else. I was wrong. I was weak. And I'm sorry. For all of it." Then he paused. Looked down. Took a breath. "I'll give you whatever space you need. But if there's even a small chance for us, I'll wait." I watched it twice. Then I sat there, staring at the wall, heart twisted in 100 directions. Because the thing is, part of me wanted to believe him. Part of me missed the familiarity. The shared history. The way we used to be. But wanting to believe someone doesn't mean you can trust them again. And missing the past doesn't mean you belong in it. The next morning, I found myself driving by our old house. Just once. Just to see. The porch light was still flickering the way it always did when the bulb was about to die. His car was in the driveway. I didn't stop. Later that night, I sat down with Kayla on her back porch. Crickets chirping. Wind soft through the trees. He seemed sorry, I admitted. She took a long sip of wine. He should be. I looked at her. "Do you think people change?" She shrugged. "I think they can. But not overnight. And not just because they're scared to lose something." That sat heavy with me. Because the truth is, Clinton's sorry didn't come from clarity. It came from consequence. From losing control. Losing me. And I deserved more than panic apologies. I deserved peace. So I texted him. "I saw your video. I believe you're sorry. But that doesn't mean we go back. I need to move forward. Whether you're in that picture or not is no longer up to you." He didn't respond right away. When he finally did, it was short. I understand. I'm still here. That night, I didn't cry. Instead, I opened my laptop and started looking for a place of my own. Not a guest room. Not a temporary escape. But mine. Somewhere I could start again. Not as a wife recovering from betrayal, but as a woman rebuilding her life. And as I clicked through listings, I realized something. Closure isn't always a moment. Sometimes, it's a series of choices that say, I deserve more than what broke me. Clinton's sorry came too late. But I was right on time for myself. You don't realize how much your name matters until you're about to sign it to end a whole chapter of your life. The papers sat in front of me like they were alive, staring, daring me to change my mind. Are you sure? My lawyer asked gently, pen in hand, as if one more breath might make me unravel. I nodded, though my stomach was tight. Yeah, I'm sure. It had been 3 weeks since Clinton's video message. 3 weeks of silence, minus a few civil texts about the kids. He didn't fight me on the divorce. That surprised me. Maybe he thought it was a bluff. Or maybe, just maybe, he finally respected my choice. Still, the finality of it hit different. It wasn't like in the movies. No dramatic ink stroke, no thunderclaps or music swelling. Just a ballpoint pen gliding over legal language, and me handing back a piece of paper that said I was no longer his. When I walked out of the lawyer's office, the sun was too bright. It felt like stepping out of a cave after being underground too long. I sat in my car and stared at the dashboard. My hands were shaking, just slightly. I didn't know if I wanted to scream or nap or drive until I ran out of gas. Instead, I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, and texted Clinton. It's done. You'll be getting your copy in a few days. He replied within minutes. Okay. I hope you find what you're looking for, Minnie. Really. Short. Simple. But it landed heavy. For 10 years, I'd been his wife. Now, I was just Minnie again. And that scared me more than I expected. That night, I went back to Kayla's and sat in the backyard with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, even though the air was warm. She brought out a bottle of champagne she'd been saving since her last birthday. To endings and beginnings, she said, pouring 2 glasses. I hesitated before clinking mine to hers. It doesn't feel like a beginning, I admitted. It just feels hollow. She looked at me for a long moment. That's because you haven't decided what comes next yet. The beginning doesn't happen to you. You build it. Those words stayed with me. The next day, I toured an apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, small, clean, bright. 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a tiny balcony just big enough for 1 chair and a cup of coffee. The landlord asked if I needed time to think. No, I said. I'll take it. I signed the lease that afternoon. And just like that, for the first time in over a decade, I had a place that was mine. Not ours. Not shared. Not compromised. Mine. The kids took it surprisingly well when I told them. Clinton and I sat them down together. Neutral ground, calm voices. We told them it wasn't their fault. That we both loved them deeply. That they'd still have 2 homes, 2 parents, 1 family. Just shaped differently now. Our daughter Olivia cried. Our son Max didn't say much at all. But later, when we were packing up some of their things for the new apartment, he handed me one of his drawings, a stick figure house with a smiley face inside. This one's you, he said. That drawing sits on my new fridge now. A week later, the movers came. Clinton wasn't there. I didn't expect him to be. But when I unpacked my last box, I found something I hadn't seen in years. My old college notebook. Inside was a list I'd made when I was 21. Things I want to be. Brave, honest, free, loved myself. I stared at it for a long time. Brave? I think so. Honest? Getting there. Free. Finally. The other 2? We'll see. That night, I sat out on the tiny balcony, wrapped in a hoodie, sipping tea, listening to the city move around me. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something, or someone, to rescue me. I wasn't just moving on. I was moving into something new. Something that belonged only to me. I didn't go looking for anyone. Honestly, the last thing I wanted was to be seen as available. I wasn't. I was still unpacking parts of myself that had been hidden for years, things I'd compromised, silenced, or buried under labels like wife and mother. But grief does strange things to time. Some days, I felt like I was sprinting away from the past. Other days, like I was crawling through it. That's where I was when I met him. Elliot. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I was wandering through the local bookstore, this cozy little corner shop with creaky floors, shelves that nearly touched the ceiling, and a soft smell of dust and ink that somehow calmed my nerves. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. Just a place to think. Or not think. I stood in front of the memoir section, running my finger across the spines, when I heard a voice beside me. You ever notice how all memoir titles sound like they've already won an award? I turned, caught off guard, and found him standing a few feet away, tall, mid-40s maybe, messy curls, glasses. He had a kind face. That was the first thing I noticed. Not handsome in the movie star way, but in a way that felt warm. Familiar. I laughed before I could stop myself. Yeah, it's like the more vague and poetic the title, the more emotional damage is guaranteed. He grinned. Exactly. The wind between us. What even is that? Wind? Between who? I smirked, pulling a copy off the shelf. Want to find out? And just like that, we started talking. It was easy. Effortless even. We drifted from books to coffee shops to travel stories. He told me he was a graphic designer who freelanced from home. I told him I was in nonprofit administration, currently surviving on boxed mac and cheese and stubbornness. We didn't talk about marriage. Or heartbreak. Or anything heavy. Just life. Lighter things. And it felt good. Not thrilling or electric. Just real. After a while, he glanced at the time and winced. I've got to pick up my dog from the groomer. He's very high maintenance. I smiled. What's his name? Leonard. Of course it is, I said, laughing. He hesitated. Listen, I don't usually do this, but would you maybe want to grab coffee sometime? Just coffee. No pressure. I surprised myself by saying yes. And later that night, I stared at his name in my phone, Elliot with no last name yet, and wondered what the old me would think. Probably that it was too soon. That I needed more time. But the me sitting in that new apartment, sipping tea on a tiny balcony, was learning that healing doesn't follow a schedule. It shows up in the little things. Like laughter with a stranger in a bookstore. We met for coffee 2 days later. It wasn't a date. At least, I didn't call it that. Just two people, 2 mugs, and a cafe playlist full of sad indie songs. He asked questions. Real ones. He wasn't trying to impress me. He just listened. Really listened. At one point, he asked, so, who is Minnie when she's not being everything for everyone else? I blinked. That one caught me off guard. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm trying to find her. He smiled, eyes kind. That's a pretty great place to start. I didn't know then if Elliot would be a chapter, a footnote, or something more. All I knew was that being around him didn't make me feel like I had to prove anything. I didn't have to be fixed, or forgiven, or figured out. I just had to be present. And that felt her. As I walked home that night, the sky turning a soft pink above the city, I realized something. Maybe this wasn't about replacing what I lost. Maybe it was about discovering what I never really had. I was starting to feel like myself again, whoever that was. Elliot and I had gone on 3 coffee non-dates in the span of 2 weeks. He never pushed. Never asked for more than I could give. We talked about everything but relationships. And that made me trust him even more. There was a lightness to those days. New routines, my own apartment, small rituals like morning coffee by the window and late-night phone calls with Kayla. For the first time in a long time, life didn't feel like a tightrope. It felt steady. But peace never shows up without something trying to break it. It was a Sunday afternoon, and the kids were with me. Olivia had just turned 12, and Max was 8. We were sprawled across the living room floor, building a fort out of couch cushions and old sheets. Olivia was unusually quiet, folding the blankets with the kind of care kids usually reserve for glass. You okay? I asked her. She didn't look up. Did you love Dad? The question landed like a brick. Of course I did, I said gently. Then why'd you leave? I froze. Max was humming to himself in the corner, stacking pillows like Legos, oblivious. But Olivia stared at me, serious, grown-up eyes in a child's face. I sat down beside her. What happened between your dad and me? It wasn't because I stopped loving him. It was because he made choices that broke what we had. And sometimes when something is broken in a certain way, you can't fix it, even if you want to. She didn't respond, just nodded and walked off to help Max. But that conversation clung to me all night. And it got worse the next day. Clinton showed up at my apartment building. I was coming back from the grocery store, juggling too many bags, when I saw him leaning against his car, looking out of place in a parking lot full of scratched-up sedans and bikes chained to railings. Hey, he said, standing up. I didn't stop walking. What are you doing here? We need to talk. No, we don't. Minnie, please. His tone stopped me. It wasn't angry. It was desperate. I sighed and motioned toward the small bench outside the building. We sat, awkward and stiff. I heard about this Elliot guy, he said. Of course he had. From Olivia, he added. She's confused. She thinks you moved on too fast. I narrowed my eyes. You talked to her about my personal life? I didn't bring it up, she did. She's hurting men. They both are. And now they're trying to make sense of some guy they've never met being around their mom. I felt the heat rise in my chest. Elliot hasn't even met them. I haven't crossed that line. You don't get to use the kids to guilt me. I'm not guilting you. I'm asking you to slow down. For them. For them. Not for me. Not for us. For them. Clinton had always been good at that, making his concerns sound noble when it was really about control. You lost the right to tell me how to live the moment you decided our marriage was optional, I said quietly. He flinched. And for a second, I almost softened. Almost. Then he said, You're still my family, Minnie. And I shook my head. No. They're your family. I'm not. Not anymore. He stood, running a hand through his hair. You're not who I remember. I looked up at him, voice calm. That's the point. He didn't respond. Just walked back to his car and drove off. I went inside, dropped the groceries, and sat on the floor in the middle of the kitchen. The past doesn't just let go because you do. It waits. It lingers. And when you start to breathe again, it shows up with receipts, guilt, and a history that wants to be rewritten. That night, I called Elliot. I don't think I'm ready for more than this, I told him, heart pounding. He was quiet for a moment. I never asked you to be, he said gently. I like who you are now, not who you'll be later. And I exhaled. Maybe for the first time that day. Because yes, the past had teeth. But I was learning how to stop letting it bite into my future. Some endings don't come with fireworks or final blows. They come with a quiet decision, made in the soft space between anger and peace. After Clinton showed up at my apartment and dropped that line, You're not who I remember, I couldn't stop thinking about it. He was right. And thank God for that. Because the woman he remembered, the one who folded herself smaller just to keep the peace, who swallowed disappointments whole, was gone. Not bitter. Not broken. Just done. But the truth was, something still lingered. Not love. Not longing. Just weight. That invisible pressure on my chest that made it hard to fully exhale. I realized I hadn't released him. Not completely. And I needed to. Not for him. For me. So I called him. Can we talk? I asked. He didn't ask questions. Just agreed to meet. We chose neutral ground, some half-empty park we used to take the kids to when they were toddlers. I sat on a bench beneath a tree whose leaves were just starting to turn. Clinton showed up in jeans and a hoodie, looking tired. Older somehow. We didn't hug. Didn't smile. Just sat. I wanted to do this without an audience, I said. Without text messages or guilt trips, or the kids caught in the middle. He nodded. There's something I need to say, and I need to say it clean. No drama. No expectations. He folded his hands in his lap and looked at me like he already knew what was coming. I forgive you, I said. His eyes widened. Not with joy. With confusion. I don't forgive you because you said all the right things, I continued. Or because you fixed anything. I forgive you because I don't want to carry this anymore. I don't want to be angry every time I see your name pop up on my phone. I don't want to replay the betrayal in my head like a movie on loop. He opened his mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. I'm not saying this so we can start over. I'm saying this so I can move forward without you in my rearview mirror. He looked away, jaw tense. So that's it then? Clinton, I said softer now. It's been it for a long time. You just didn't see it. He let out a slow breath and nodded. I messed up. Yeah, you did. There was no venom in my voice. Just truth. Honest and steady. I keep thinking about that night, he said, when you found out. You were so calm. Like a storm with no sound. That scared me more than anything. I wasn't calm, I said. I was numb. I was grieving something that hadn't even died yet. But it's dead now. And I've already buried it. He looked down at the ground, chewing on whatever apology he knew wouldn't fix a thing. Then he said something I didn't expect. I really did love you. I nodded. I believe that. But love without respect isn't love I want anymore. We sat in silence for a while, just watching the wind rustle through brittle leaves. Eventually I stood. I wish you the best, Clinton. I really do. And I hope you become the man our kids can look up to. But I'm not your soft landing anymore. I can't be. He looked up at me, eyes glassy. You already are. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I walked away. Not rushed. Not angry. Just finished. And something shifted as I did. A release. Like finally putting down a weight I didn't know I'd still been carrying. Later that night, I told Elliot. We were sitting on opposite ends of my couch, feet tangled, a movie playing we both weren't really watching. I saw Clinton today, I said. He paused the screen. Are you okay? I'm good, I said. I let him go. Elliot smiled. Not the relieved kind, not the jealous kind. The genuine kind. I'm proud of you. And I knew he meant it. I curled up beside him, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Not adrenaline. Not tension. Not the tightrope of pretending. Just peace. Forgiveness didn't mean going back. It meant finally choosing myself. Without guilt. Without apology. And this time, I wasn't surviving. I was healing. It's strange, the moment you realize you're no longer just surviving. You don't notice it right away. It sneaks up on you in small ways, like laughing without guilt, sleeping through the night, or sipping your coffee without your mind racing 100 miles ahead. That was me now. Not healed all the way, but healing. Steady. Awake. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I had dinner with the kids that Friday. Just the three of us. We ordered pizza, spread a giant blanket on the living room floor, and turned on a movie we'd all seen a dozen times. Olivia curled up beside me, her head on my shoulder. Max fell asleep halfway through mid-slice, his plate still on his lap. I looked at them, really looked, and felt something click into place. This was my family. Right here. Not broken. Just different now. Later, after I tucked them in, Olivia stopped me at the door. Mom. Yeah, baby. I don't hate you for leaving Dad. My throat tightened. I just didn't understand it before, she said. But I see you now. You're happier. I kissed her forehead, held it together until I made it back to the hallway, and then let myself cry. Not because I was sad, but because I was seen. And that mattered more than anything. A few weeks later, Elliot and I took a walk by the lake. It was early evening, the sky painted in soft streaks of gold and blue, and we were quiet in that easy way we always were. He reached for my hand. You know, he said, you're kind of incredible. I smirked. Only kind of? He laughed. Okay, absolutely incredible. I looked at him, really looked. This man had never tried to save me. He didn't fix my broken pieces. He just stood with me while I rebuilt them. And that's what made the difference. Can I ask you something? I said. Anything. Do you believe in second chances? He squeezed my hand. I believe in the right chances. Given to the right people. I didn't know what the future would look like. But for once, I wasn't scared of it. I was curious. Months passed. Fall turned to winter, then to early spring. Life settled into something soft and steady. I moved into a small house. Nothing fancy but mine. The kids helped me paint their rooms, splattering more on the floor than the walls. We planted flowers in the front yard, even though none of us had a clue what we were doing. And I started writing again, something I hadn't done in years. Just little essays and reflections. Nothing major. But it felt like remembering a part of myself I thought I'd lost. Elliot never pushed for more. But one morning, as we sat on the porch drinking coffee, he turned to me and said, "This, whatever this is, it's the most honest thing I've ever had." And I knew what he meant. It wasn't perfect, but it was true. People ask me now if I ever regret leaving. If I miss the old life, the comfort, the structure. And the answer is always the same. No. Because what I gained was something far more valuable. I gained myself. I gained a voice that doesn't tremble when it speaks. A heart that knows its worth. And a love, both from others and within, that feels like coming home. So no, this wasn't the life I planned. But it's the life I chose. And I'd choose it again. Every time. Thanks for listening to my story. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. This is how you can support the channel. Until next time. Bye.